And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winick. I'm the founder and CEO of Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining us on the podcast, which is Leveraging Thought Leadership. Today, my guest is Aurora Winter. I'll give you her quick bio. So she's an award-winning best-selling author. She's got a couple of books. Two of them are Turn Words into Wealth and then Marketing Fastrack. She's an entrepreneur. She's a media trainer, and she created the spoken author method. And she's also the founder of Same Page Publishing. Her books have won several awards. I'm skimming through the list here. She's been on many podcasts and on such stations as ABC, CBS, and many others. And let's just, instead of talking about her, let's talk with her. So welcome.
Great to be here with you, Peter.
Yeah, so let's dive in. So first off, how did you, if I were to find you 10 or 15 or 20 years ago and say, where are you going to be today? This would have, you would have accurately predicted exactly how all this played out, I assume.
Right. No, not so much.
Not so much. Okay. So we're,
I love strategy, but I seem like in my own life, although later it seems, that makes sense. But I used to be in film and television, so was a TV writer, producer. Okay. And I got frustrated by not being able to create my own movies without raising several $1 million. So
I hate when that happens, right?
I hate when that happens. So that led me back to books. And then I ran into the typical problems first-time authors have with books. And then when I solved those problems for myself, then I wanted to help other people not suffer for 3.5 years writing books when they can do it faster and get the word out better.
Okay, so given the limited time amount we have, because we can talk for this one topic for hours, what might some of the problems that first-time authors face be that you've solved? Because that is a very, very, very long list, but give us sort of a highlight reel. Let's play with that a little bit.
That's a long list, and I know that you know a lot about that. For the benefit of the listeners, most first-time authors spend 3.5 years writing a book. Most people...
Oh, I didn't know that. Wait, so 3.5 years from I'm going to write a book till thud on the desk. Ouch. That's
throwing it on the desk and sometimes throwing it in the trash bin. But anyway.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then most people believe the myth that they need to be the person at the keyboard or at the typewriter. And that's why I created the spoken author method. Most experts or leaders or would-be thought leaders have something to say. They can easily share stories. They can share their expertise. They can answer those questions that everybody's asking them about whatever their area of expertise is. But most people freeze up when they face a blank page.
So stay there for a minute, because and I won't name the name, but it was a funny story where someone asked a client of mine who's a multiple New York Times bestseller, "Oh, what other books do you read?" And he answered quite honestly, "I haven't even read my book."
I know who you're thinking of.
Well, we'll compare notes later, but maybe there's more than one. And I think, and what's funny, maybe not funny about that, is having the desire and the passion and something to say and the want or need to put it in a book is one thing. Being, a master of prose and all those other things that it takes to take fuzzy ideas rattling around in your head and put them into something, readable, digestible, etc. That's usually not the same skill set.
Most people have collapsed those two things, but that's not how it was done. I mean, royalties, celebrities, business tycoons, Sir Winston Churchill. Do you think that they actually wrote every word? No, they dictated it to secretaries or researchers or assistants. And while it was Winston Churchill's ideas, it wasn't him doing all the word wrangling. And the same with the books from famous celebrities or politicians. But now, thanks to the wonders of the internet, everyday regular people can benefit from being interviewed and having a team, around the world who can shape their thoughts and their ideas into something useful. I mean, Sir Richard Branson, he's dyslexic. He hates words. And he's written a whole bunch of New York Times bestselling books. And he's very clear. I mean, he mentions his ghostwriter in the dedication and is very grateful to him. So I want to teach art.
Yeah. What I was going to say is what traditionally prevented absolute garbage from being in the universe was access, cost, and publishers, right? So publishers, if they serve no other purpose, to be determined, right? It was a filtering mechanism, right? So let's say Richard Branson was dyslexic and decided he's going to write on his own and it wasn't a coherent sentence, they weren't going to put that out there. And then part of the downside, and there's far more upside than downside of self-publishing and all these tools, is anybody and their mother could be a published author, and many times they are. And there was no, at least in the early wave of this, quality control. So my opinion, whether you self-publish, hybrid publish, traditional, there is absolutely unequivocally no excuse for poor grammar, typos, things that look like they were typeset by, a drunken elf. And that's the kind of crap that is just unacceptable. My humble opinion.
But that's just hire an editor, hire a book cover designer, hire a layout designer. I mean, if we are looking to publishers that the only thing that they do is gatekeepers, I mean, that's a stupid use of giving away 80% of the profits. That makes no sense. That's not a good business model.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah. Well, let's stay on this path of because I spend a lot of my time educating, clients that haven't published yet. And I feel sometimes like telling a kid there's no, Easter bunny or Christmas. I feel like the bad guy, right? And it's like, their view of the world is, I'm me, and then I'm going to get an agent, and the agent's going to get me a deal, and then rainbows and unicorns. Like, okay, kid, let me sit down here. Let me tell you how this works, right? So give us some more myths that they struggle with, or real things they struggle with, probably better.
Well, you hit on another myth, which is that, okay, once the book is done, you're done. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry, that's only 10% of it. I remember when my first book was published, From Heartbreak to Happiness, so happy. Dr. Wayne Dyer, who's my hero, endorsed the book. Yep. And it was a beautiful hardcover book. And I, slaved over it, agonized over every comma. And then somebody told me, oh yeah, okay, now the hard work begins. Now you have to market the book. I'm like, what? I thought it was done, the hard work. No. So, I mean, my company, Same Page Publishing, we're just a small boutique firm, and we focus on award-winning best-selling books. So we like to help people who want, the velvet glove treatment, every step of the way, and want hand-holding all through the process of getting their book to be an award-winning book and a best-selling book, and having it launch their business or their career or their speaking platform to the next level.
Yeah, I like the way you did that sequentially, is that award-winning and then bestseller, because a lot of people, what do you want to be? I want to be a New York Times bestseller. Okay, well, here's the algorithm, and here's what that looks like. If you can sell 10,782 books, or whatever the number is that week, congratulations, you're a New York Times bestseller. But they're not focused on, I want to produce I rarely hear, I should say rarely, don't hear enough. I want to produce a book I'm really going to be proud of. I want to produce a book that's going to make it, it's somebody else's measure of success. It's like, I want to be 5% richer than my neighbor. Like, okay, that's sort of a stupid metric. Misery. Yeah, exactly.
Killing your ego, a recipe for misery. A book is such a legacy piece. The book can easily, survive after I'm gone, after the author is gone. And you want to be proud of it. I mean, it's a lifetime achievement. It's like having a PhD, or having, in my case, an MBA. It's something to be proud of. It's an achievement. It's an accomplishment. And what is it? People just, I had a podcast interview with a woman who, she said, I thought I wanted a New York Times bestselling book until speaking to you. Now I realize, no, I want the book to be really great. And also that's not.
Well, and I think the other side of that is, or maybe it's related to that, is the book industrial complex, if you will, right? The publicists, the publishers, whatever, that whole universe really are short-term thinkers. And I'm not making, that's not a judgment. It's just the cadence of the business. They have their fall catalog, they have their spring catalog, whatever. And I think what too many authors fail to understand far too often is, listen, you're going to go through this phase with the publisher where you're the most important person in the world for a really, really short period of time. And then you're kind of irrelevant. And don't take it personally. It is your book. And you should be thinking of your book as if it was an investment, because it is, right? Of your time, of your money, of the opportunity cost, et cetera. And trying to amortize that investment over a 5 to 7 year schedule at a minimum. Because to me, the classic example, the proof of a great book is, pick a book off my shelf. It might be 30 years old. It might be not out yet. It might be 2 years old. Nobody but an author or a lunatic in publishing goes back to the pub date. It's a ridiculous date. It's like, this is a good book that stood the test of time. Maybe not for 50 years, right? Maybe for 5 years. That's okay.
Yeah. It's an asset. A book is a piece of intellectual property. It's an asset. And you're right, people need to amortize it. And our society is like, we live in a microwave society. Everybody wants like instant. But honestly, microwaving your dinner is not going to produce the same results as if you cook it, the ideal way. And it's the same with the book. I don't think fast should be the ideal outcome. Or like in my book, Turn Words into Wealth, I share, 7 different business models that have been proven to monetize books. And none of those 7 is a New York Times bestseller, because that is very expensive to do if you're starting from nothing. But there's different business models that can monetize a book over time if you're a business owner or a thought leader or have something further to offer.
If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership, please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave us a review and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcast and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcasts. So one of the things that I try to sort of, how would I put it, unfuzzy for people, right, is, a book by its very definition is a mass market product. It's a $20, $25 product that you want to sell thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of. Great. It's kind of no different than soap or toilet paper or perfume. The reality is, what are you really trying to achieve with your book? Let's think about the goal. So if you're a consultant and you landed a handful of high 6 or low 7-figure clients over the course of 2-3 years, that would be your version of a New York Times bestseller. And I think oftentimes we're falling for other people's versions, right? So if that's the case, if I'm a consultant and a good engagement for me is $500,000, I'd like to pick up 5 clients over 3 years, whatever that math is. Great. Then that's hand-to-hand combat. So who are the 500 people, 300 people, 200 people that if I got the book in their hands could change my game, and start to think of it that way, very bespoke, very one-on-one than these mass marketing tactics.
I love the way you talk about that. That's very clear, really nice sound bites. Well, David Goggins, he decided to self-publish his book, as I'm sure that you know. He said the worst advice he ever got was by New York agent, who said that if he self-published, the most number of copies he would sell would be 5,000. But David Goggins decided to self-publish anyway, or independent publish, as we call it, because he didn't want to lose control of his story. And he went on, as you probably know, to sell 1 million copies of Can't Hurt Me and 600,000 copies of the audiobook by promoting it himself. But most people don't realize they're going to have to promote their book themselves anyway. So if you're going to have to promote it anyway, why not keep the bulk of the revenue and keep control? If he had gone with
I hope he's sending that agent book scan numbers every quarter.
That'd be good. If he had gone with a big publisher, it probably would have cost him in the order of magnitude of $10 to $20 million. But you're right.
But okay, so unpack that though. So this is the other piece that people don't understand. Is part of a decision to publish self, hybrid, traditional is a business decision, full stop. Absolutely. So if the publisher is looking at you to be the sales vehicle because you're a speaker or you have a following or whatever it is, then you go, okay, great. So I'm writing the book and I'm selling the book. So if this was a partnership, what are they bringing to the table? Wait, and they get 80 or 90 cents on the dollar? That doesn't feel right. Like just intuitively to a 10-year-old, if you said, we're both going to make this peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you get the crust and I get the rest of it, how does that feel to you? The 7-year-old's going to go, that doesn't feel nice. Like,
exactly right.
Like we know this intuitively. Yeah. And now we're seeing things, I call them the worst of both worlds, where you get a book contract from a big publisher that says, okay, well, you're not going to get an advance. Now, authors, by the way, don't understand, confused. What does an advance mean? It's an advance against future earnings. It is not I'm going to give you this money because I think you're so charming, Aurora. It is a bet against the future earnings stream, right? So it's really about cash flow. Mm-hmm. So not only do the publishers say, you're not going to get an advance. Okay, that's fine. I'll make it up later. That's all cool and dandy. But you only have to buy, 3,000 books a year for 2 years at wholesale. So then you do the math on that and say, so all the economic risk is on me as well. Yeah. And then if this thing does well, you're my partner at 80 cents on the dollar. Like
what part of that makes sense? How badly do you need to feed your ego?
It's like a bad mob movie, right? Like it just doesn't, whatever.
Exactly.
So, but I think people sometimes don't use business math or just basic business logic and reasoning and say, is this a business deal that feels like a logical deal for you? Are they making any guarantees? Probably not. Are they putting their best and brightest on it? No, you're a first-time author. You can get a 23-year-old that just graduated Smith or Vassar or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm a big believer in self-publishing or independent publishing, but I'm a diehard entrepreneur. I like to have control of my lead magnets. So, but I liked what you said a few minutes ago when you were talking about, somebody, let's talk about their specific business plan and be more bespoke. So my business plan, like my books, are mass market books that will help a lot of people. I hope that they help a lot of people, and I don't withhold anything in my books. So people can actually get the book Marketing Fastrack, the little book that launched a new business, which generated $250,000 of new business in 90 days. They can get the ebook for free wherever they like to get books, Amazon, Kobo, Apple. So
by the way, let's pull that soundbite. Is the ultimate excellent way to throw in a plug. Well done. Very well done.
Thanks, Peter. And in my book,
and I'm joking about that, but like far too many people are guests on a podcast, and we're not. I mean, this isn't plug-a-rama here. Yeah. But why wouldn't you mention it? Like, I can't tell you how many guests are like, okay, and go find me on Amazon. Find you. I'm too busy. Tell me exactly where it is and what it is and why, and like give me something to remember. So I'm pointing it out sort of jokingly, but I think it actually is a case study in a nice way to do that, in a high level way to do that.
Thanks, Peter. Well, and it's a great gift. It's absolutely free. I took my MBA. I took 2 years off my business. I just came back from Italy. This was in 2015. And I'm like, okay, now what? I have to either start a business again or I have to get a job. Nah, let's not do that.
Job. Ooh, right.
Like I just had a small email list at that time at 12,000 people. And I thought people knew me as a coach trainer.
Sure.
And I thought, well, maybe people would be interested in having my help with their marketing, messaging, and publishing their book. So I used a 1-hour interview, which I transcribed. So it was the spoken author method, but in brief, and turned that into a little book to use as a minimum viable product or an MVP, most valuable player.
Totally. Yep.
And see if people would be interested in having my help with their marketing, their messaging, and publishing their book. And that little book, when I sent it out to my email list, they just paid shipping and handling. Then they got 5 videos that added more value. Then they were offered a business breakthrough session, and that generated $250,000 of new business in 90 days. Not from book sales. The book was a gift.
No, right? And even if it was sales, whether you sold 30 or 3,000 net, you spent X, you generated X number of net new, so it's a client acquisition cost, right?
Absolutely.
And, as long as the math works on that 250 that you acquired those gross dollars cost effectively, which it sounds like you did, that's a winner. But that's not the stuff that people love to sort of brag about. That doesn't sound, I'd rather hear that story because that's how I'm wired than, and I'm a Amazon bestseller, which is like saying, so you paid someone, whatever, $1,000 to take a screenshot. Like that's good for you. Good luck with that.
If memory serves me, I spent about $12,000 in Google and Facebook ads. So it was very good return on investment.
Right. What is that 20x? Wait, what's what? Yeah, so that's about 20x. Right. So you have a 5%.
$50,000 in and
120, 240. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
That's good math.
That's good math. So my book, Turn Words into Wealth, which is the book that just came out, 80% of people want to write a book. So a lot of people will find that very useful, but only a small trickle of those people will be people who can afford to invest in having it done for them, having it,
Sure, of course. Right.
And that's my business model. I'm happy to.
And that's okay. Yeah.
It's more than okay. It's fabulous.
Cool. Well, on that note, this has been fun. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your story, your insights, letting us in behind the curtain a little bit. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Aurora.
My pleasure.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically. And welcome. This is Peter Winick.